the summit of Everest. After years of training, hundreds of thousands of dollars, weeks of agony on that mountain, you are standing at the top of the world. You take a photo. You cry. You radio your base camp team. They scream with joy. And then, you turn around. And here's what nobody ever tells you. That moment, the moment you turn around, is statistically the most dangerous moment of your entire climb. Not the death zone, not the Hillary Step, not the Khumbu icefall that has swallowed climbers alive. The turnaround. Because the mountain doesn't kill you on the way up. It waits. It lets you exhaust every last reserve of oxygen in your blood, every gram of glucose in your muscles, every milligram of focus left in your frostbitten brain. And then, when you have absolutely nothing left, that's when Everest collects. Data from over 300 documented Everest fatalities shows that approximately 56% of all deaths occur on the descent. Not the ascent, not the push to the top, the way back down. If you've ever wondered why some of the world's most elite, experienced, perfectly equipped climbers die on a mountain they successfully summited, stay with me. Because the answer isn't bad luck. It's a system, a trap. And once you understand how it works, you'll never think about Everest or human limits the same way again. And before we go any further, if you're new here, this channel is where we go beyond the headlines. We don't just tell you what happened. We tell you why it keeps happening, even when everyone knows better. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it means the world to this channel. Let's get into it. Let's start with a number that should be impossible. 80%. That is the percentage of Everest deaths that occur above 26,000 feet. What climbers call the death zone. That part makes sense. The higher you go, the thinner the air, the more dangerous everything becomes. We all understand that. But here's where it gets strange. Of those deaths in the death zone, the majority don't happen while climbers are pushing upward. They happen on the retreat, the walk back to safety. Why? Because of what physiologists call the summit trap. And once I explain the mechanics, you will immediately understand why it's almost impossible to escape once you're in it. Here's how the trap is built. When you climb Everest, you spend weeks acclimatizing, teaching your body to function on less and less oxygen as you go higher. Your blood thickens. Your body produces more red blood cells. Your brain rewires itself to operate on fumes. It's genuinely one of the most remarkable things the human body can do. But there's a cost. Above 26,000 feet, the partial pressure of oxygen in the air drops so low that acclimatization stops working. Your body is no longer adapting. It is simply dying. Every minute you spend above that altitude, you are losing brain cells, losing muscle tissue, losing cognitive function. There is no plateau. There is only decline. Now add this. Most summit attempts begin at midnight, from a high camp at around 26,000 feet. Climbers then spend between 8 and 12 hours pushing to the summit and descending back to that camp. 8 to 12 hours in the death zone. Think about what your body looks like after 12 hours of that. Your blood oxygen saturation, which should be 95 to 100% at sea level, can drop to as low as 50% near the summit. At 40%, most people lose consciousness. Climbers are functioning at the edge of organ failure. And that's when they have to descend. Not rest, not sleep. Descend, navigate, make technical decisions, clip into fixed ropes with fingers they can barely feel, judge distances through eyes that are starting to hallucinate. The summit isn't the finish line. It's the halfway point. And your body doesn't know that. Quick pause. If you're watching this on your phone right now, do me a favor and hit the like button. It sounds small, but it genuinely tells YouTube to show this video to more people, which means more people understand what's actually happening on this mountain beyond the basic headlines. Takes 1 second. Appreciate it. Now, back to the trap. There is a concept in high-altitude mountaineering called the turnaround time. Before every serious summit attempt, climbers set a hard deadline, typically between noon and 2 p.m., at which point, regardless of how close they are to the summit, they must turn around. Even if the summit is 200 meters away, even if they feel fine. The logic is simple. If you haven't summited by 2 p.m., you won't make it back to camp before dark, your oxygen will run out, and you will die. Every serious mountaineer knows this. Virtually every serious mountaineer violates it. This isn't stupidity. It's something much more dangerous. It's psychology meeting physiology in the worst possible way. Here's what happens in the brain at altitude. Hypoxia, oxygen deprivation, doesn't make you feel foggy in the way you might imagine. You don't suddenly feel confused or drunk. Instead, it produces a specific kind of impaired judgment, where you feel completely normal while making catastrophically bad decisions. Neuroscientists call it anosognosia, a condition where the brain loses the ability to recognize its own dysfunction. In plain language, you don't know that you don't know. Climbers who have been rescued and recovered have described in interviews a total inability to perceive how impaired they were. They felt sharp, confident, capable of assessing the risk clearly. They were wrong. And this is exactly why the turnaround time gets violated over and over again, year after year, even by people who have studied the deaths of those who violated it before them. You are standing 600 feet from the summit. Your brain, running on 20% of the oxygen it needs, tells you you're close. You feel the pull, the sunk cost of everything you've invested, the social pressure, the once-in-a-lifetime calculation. You keep going. You summit at 3 p.m. You have no idea what you've just done to yourself, because now the descent, which requires every bit as much technical precision as the climb up, begins in failing light, on legs that have nothing left, with a brain operating at catastrophic oxygen deficit. The ropes that saved you on the way up now become hazards. The ice that was manageable at dawn is now death. Every step is a decision, and every decision is being made by a brain that is actively shutting down. The mountain didn't beat you at the summit. It beat you the moment you passed your turnaround time. Let's go deeper into the physical mechanics, because this is where it gets genuinely unsettling. When you descend from extreme altitude, something counterintuitive happens with your perception of effort. Going down feels easier than going up. Physiologically, the cardiovascular load is lower. Your heart doesn't have to work as hard to move blood against gravity. Your lungs are pulling in slightly more oxygen with each step than they were during the ascent. So your brain, starved for oxygen and desperate for signals, interprets this slight improvement as recovery. You feel better. You are not better. You are still in the death zone. You are still dying. But the perceived reduction in effort creates a false sense of stability. And this is when the real killers move in. The first is hypothermia. The summit of Everest sits in the jet stream. Temperatures can plunge to -40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, with wind chills that make the effective temperature far worse. During the ascent, the effort of climbing generates body heat. During the descent, that caloric burn drops, and the body, already depleted, can no longer generate enough internal heat to stay warm. Core body temperature begins to drop. And as core body temperature drops, something terrible happens. It accelerates the hypoxia. Cold blood carries oxygen less efficiently. Cold muscles respond morely to signals. Cold fingers can no longer feel the ropes. The second killer is dehydration. At extreme altitude, the respiratory rate increases massively. Climbers breathe 3 to 4 times faster than they would at sea level. Every exhaled breath carries moisture. Over a 12-hour summit push, a climber can lose 3 to 5 liters of water through breathing alone, before sweating is even factored in. Severe dehydration thickens the blood further, raises the risk of pulmonary and cerebral edema, and critically impairs neuromuscular coordination. The third killer is the one nobody likes to talk about: oxygen system failure. The vast majority of Everest climbers above the South Col use supplemental oxygen, tanks worn on their backs, fed through a mask at a controlled rate. These systems are engineered to be reliable, but they are also being operated by people who are cognitively impaired, physically exhausted, and wearing gloves at 40 below. Regulator failures, frozen valves, masks that slip, tanks that run out earlier than expected because the climber breathed harder than planned on the push to the top. When supplemental oxygen runs out or fails in the death zone, the timeline to unconsciousness is measured in minutes. And if you are alone on a fixed rope at 28,000 feet when that happens, the mountain has you. I want to stop here and ask you something. If you are on this mountain, right now, knowing everything I've just told you, do you think you could turn around at the turnaround time? Or do you think the pull of the summit would override it? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I read every single one, and I genuinely want to know what you think. There's also a follow-up question I'm going to ask at the end of this video, and I want your opinion on it. Here's a factor that has become dramatically more lethal in the last 15 years, and it barely gets coverage: overcrowding. Everest is a commercial operation. Since the 90s, the mountain has been open to anyone who can pay the permit fee, which runs to $11,000 for the Nepali side alone, plus the cost of a commercial expedition, which can run to $65,000 to $100,000 or more. In 2019, the year the infamous summit photos went viral, showing queues of climbers stretching hundreds of meters up the Hillary Step, a record 381 people summited in a single season. 11 people died. Not all of those deaths were directly caused by overcrowding, but the overcrowding created conditions that directly contributed to them. Here's the mechanism. The summit window on Everest is narrow, typically only a handful of days per season, where the jet stream pulls back far enough to allow a safe ascent. Every expedition that has paid its fees wants to summit during that window, and when that window opens, everyone moves at once. On the fixed ropes above the South Col, hundreds of climbers may be ascending and descending simultaneously. The ropes are fixed. There is only one line. To pass someone, you must unclip, which means you are momentarily unprotected on ice at extreme altitude. And then there's the weight. The bottlenecks on the Hillary Step and the balcony, areas where the fixed ropes funnel into single file, can force climbers to stand stationary for 30, 40, 60 minutes or more. Standing still in extreme cold, in the death zone, in full supplemental oxygen mode. That weight burns oxygen at the same rate as movement. The tanks don't know you've stopped climbing. Climbers who planned their oxygen supply for a 6-hour push are now looking at 8 hours. Their margin, which was already thin, is gone, and they are still on the way up. The descent will be made on fumes, or on nothing. The mountain hasn't changed, the equipment hasn't gotten worse, but the traffic on the fixed lines has quietly become one of the most statistically significant kill factors on the mountain. I want to spend a few minutes on something the death statistics can't tell you: what survival looks like from the inside. Because the climbers who have descended Everest safely, year after year, have something in common that isn't gear or experience or fitness. It's decision architecture. The mountaineers with the best survival records on extreme altitude peaks all describe a common mental framework. They make their hard decisions before they're in a position to make them badly. What does that mean? It means that before they leave high camp, they have already decided, concretely, irrevocably, what they will do at specific checkpoints. Not, I'll turn around if it feels wrong. That's a decision being made at altitude by a hypoxic brain. That's a decision that kills people. Instead, if I am not at the South Summit by 11 a.m., I turn around, full stop, no negotiation. The decision is made at base camp, at sea level, with a fully oxygenated brain. It is written down. It is shared with teammates. It is non-negotiable. This is the same principle that elite military units use for mission-critical operations, what strategists call a pre-commitment device. By making the decision in advance and making it social, telling your teammates, your guide, your family, you remove the possibility of in-the-moment rationalization overriding the correct choice. The climbers who die on the descent often describe the same sequence in their final communications or in post-rescue accounts. They knew they should have turned around. They felt like they could make it. They kept going. The climbers who survive year after year on extreme peaks describe a different sequence. They turned around when they said they would turn around, even when the summit was right there, even when it hurt to do it. And they came back, and they tried again. The mountain rewards patience. It punishes desire. Before I get to the final section, if you haven't subscribed yet, now is actually the moment to do it. This channel is Toward Something, a series that goes deep into the hidden mechanics of extreme survival. Not survival tips, not gear reviews. The actual psychological and physiological systems that separate who lives from who doesn't. If that's the kind of content you want more of, subscribing is how you make sure YouTube actually shows it to you. Hit the subscribe button. It's right there. Takes 1 second. And while you're at it, drop a comment below telling me what you want the next video to cover. I have 3 options in mind, and I genuinely want to pick based on what this community wants to see. I'll tell you all 3 at the end. Here's the hardest question in all of this. We have the data. We have the post-mortems. We have the testimonies of survivors. We have decades of detailed documentation of exactly how, when, and why climbers die on Everest. And the death rate hasn't gone down. Per summiteer, controlling for the increased number of attempts, the fatality rate has remained roughly consistent for decades. Better equipment, better weather forecasting, better medical support at base camp, better fixed ropes. None of it has meaningfully moved the needle on